And just everyone who's here, we are recording. We will later today or tomorrow put this out on our website and share it with everyone. So anyone who has to leave early or couldn't make it today will be able to listen to the questions being answered. I just want to thank everybody. We had many people submit questions over the past couple of days who submitted their questions. As you can imagine, some overlapped. So we combined them together to be able to get through everything. But I think we've captured. I have Liz, my assistant, monitoring to see if something else comes in during the meeting to add as a question for us to answer. And again, I just want to thank everybody for coming here today. Unfortunately, a lot you're gonna hear. There's a lot of vaguity and non-specific information coming from the state. So sometimes that will be part of the answer we give today, because that's unfortunately where the state is at this point. And I'll just give an introduction and we'll start going on answer our questions here. So first we have Nick Regano, who is our special counsel joining us. That's Nick in the corner there, which I think may be purple, maybe a brown tie. I can't tell from here. We have Alex Willett, who is our board president, who's in her office in New York City. And then myself, Joe Monastero, the superintendent of schools here in Cold Spring Harbor. And we're just going to join in here. We're kind of going to be answering as we go, adding additional information as it comes in. And let's just get into this. So our first question we have, I'll read here. Has the state assessed the potential economic impact on real estate market values and the collateral damage to the housing market due to this overreach, especially in the villages like Lloyd Harbor and Laurel Hollow? That's our first question. So to our knowledge, no such analysis has been conducted. The state plan remains to be so vague, as though a thorough review would likely reveal details that they have yet to disclose to us. The lack of transparency leaves many districts like ourselves with more questions than answers. Without this clear information, it's challenging to fully understand the potential impact on our community. Alex, Nick, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure.
No,
under the
I,
law, I'm sorry, Alex. Can I jump the gun there?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, under the law in the state, state agencies are required to analyze all effects of their regulations. They obviously did not do that here yet. To our knowledge, there's no intention to do that. So this is a really good question. And we unfortunately don't have an answer to it because, well, the answer is they have not done it yet. And we don't know what the effect will be ultimately.
Okay. Our next question, how would the state action affect spending per pupil, their overall district budget, and would the Ed Foundation still be able to support only Cold Spring Harbor students? So if the district's required to adhere to a single region-wide plan, and let me just talk what that means. We are a Western Suffolk BOCES. We work together with 19 other school districts, and we do a lot of collaboration as is. Over the past couple of years, we've hosted what we call collegial AP circles. Jen Lacatuda and Mr. Dambusky have organized them, where we've had schools from all over the island come in, share how they teach their AP courses. We share how we teach our AP courses, and we learn from each other. At the end of the day, we take what we've learned and bring back to our own districts and implement what works for us. They take back to their own districts the information they learned and use what works for them. The difference with regionalization, it's one plan that we all have to agree to and we're forced to follow. That's the problem we have here. Each of our districts is unique. Could it be that there will be mandates to use the same reading program? Could it be mandates the same lacrosse helmets, the same textbooks, the same Chromebooks, the same learning management system? We use eSchool. We want to use something else. We use Canvas. The group decides on something else. Will we need to have to use that? I don't know. Like we said, we're 20 school districts. Eastern Suffolk BOCES is 54 school districts have to come up with one plan. Eastern Suffolk is 54, right? And Nassau is 56. So all these school districts have to come up with one plan that they have to adhere to. And if districts are required to adhere to a single region-wide plan, what level of autonomy will we have in selecting the programs and our resources? That's the biggest issue we have right now in that component here of having one size fits all for our school districts. We share and discuss a lot. myself from the technical side, we started something we called In the Room, where all our tech directors came together and we shared our technical issues, how we deal with cybersecurity, how we do multi-factor authentication, and we discussed with each other, but then we brought back to our districts what worked for us. And that's what we want to continue to do, to have the autonomy, to have our Board of Education be part of the decisions, to have our administration be part of these decisions, to have our staff and our community to continue to build off what we built here in Cold Spring Harbor.
Yeah, and Joe, I was actually talking to some people on the train platform this morning about this matter, and one of the things that we've really been focused on and have seen great success with is like the acceleration of math in the elementary schools to transition into junior high, and then be able to follow a really rigorous pathway through the high school in math. And now we're looking at ELA and how we can accelerate in those areas. And if there is a one size fits all curriculum, like what happens to all that good work that's done, right? So
Exactly.
that's something that's really scary. And I don't want to jump ahead here, but I believe this is also asking about the Ed Foundation. Is that
Yes,
the
there was
question
some on
run?
the
Yeah. So I'm on two screens here, but I'm trying to make sure I'm on the right page. So it's uh, something, you know, Joe and Christine Costa and I attended the Ed Foundation board meeting last week, I believe it was, perhaps 2 weeks ago at this point. And it's a good question. How would that work? That's something that we're looking at with the Ed Foundation. The Ed Foundation has an incredible board. It's something they're looking at as well. I happen to have the benefit of being a former board member in the Ed Foundation, and I'm their liaison now. So it's something that we're working on looking at with them to make sure the protections are in place so that they could still find ways to support our students, you know, whether or not it's through the schools or outside of the schools, depending on how this lands.
Thank you. Our next question, would the Board of Education retain control over district policy, and what specific changes would occur in a district as a result of these actions? Another very good question. Currently, the Board of Education, with the president's signature, signs off on all contracts we adhere to. So if the regionalization comes with a program that we don't want to participate in, would we be forced to have to do that? And would we have to have a policy, for instance, when we worked on the Board of Education worked on a policy giving autonomy to the junior senior high school on how we rolled out our Yonder Pouch program. All the rules and regulations were set up by Mr. Dambusky and his team. The board gave lots of leeway for him to operate, but we would have to have one plan for 19 other school districts that are in Cold Spring Harbor. How would they work? Very challenging. Would they be able to maintain autonomy over how each individual district operates? I don't know. Each BOCES has their own Board of Education. Would they supersede our Board of Education if we have to follow the rules and regulations that come out of the regionalization plan set by our location? Again, like I said in the beginning, there's lots of vagaries, loss of or lack of specifics in the plan from the state. It's not in there. But what we have a concern is there's an old saying, what one generation tolerates, the next one accepts. Is this just continually weeding away and eroding away our autonomy where it seems like, oh, it's just a little thing here, just a little thing there, and it continues and continues, and we turn around 5 or 6 years down the road, and instead of having 3 plans on Long Island, which we're completely against, there's one for Suffolk, one for Nassau. And then 2 years down the road, there's one plan for Long Island. Is this where we're going with the state's regulations? It's not clear. And in fact, I want to read, I'll read that later on from Regent Tillis. Nick or Alex, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, on that, I think you hit the head, Joe.
Okay, very good. We had 110 residents. Very happy about the participation here.
Oh, Joe, do you know what I would love to say just while you mentioned
Yes, please.
residents? This is just for everyone on this call. For families who may not, or residents who may not still have children in the school, on our website, they can put their email address in to make sure that they're getting communication from us. So if everyone who's on this call wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes today just to let neighbors or anyone else you know in the community that they can continue to get information about this and other important district matters. They just need to opt in, sort of like you would in your village. for emails from the school. That would be great. Thank you. Okay,
Alex,
back to our program.
that's good.
Thanks.
That was an excellent reminder, and that's right on the front page of our website. You quickly just fill in your name and your email address, and we add you to our email blast. Our next question: if district resources are pooled with others, which districts would be included, and how would this impact Cold Spring Harbor? So right now, as I said before, we work with 19 other school districts in the Western Suffolk BOCES area. I'm going to just read through the districts that are Western Suffolk BOCES: Amityville, Babylon, Cold Spring Harbor, Comac, Copeg, Deer Park, Elwood, Half Hollow Hills, Harbor Fields, Huntington, Kings Park, Lindenhurst, North Babylon, Eastport, Northport, East Northport, Smithtown, South Huntington, West Babylon, and Wyandanch. Those are the 20 districts that are all part of the Western Suffolk BOCES component. So we would have to work together, and believe me, we meet already and we learn from each other. We would have to come up again with one single plan that we would have to follow as a unit, as one region. So trying to come together where all those schools have very different needs. We have different needs in every single one of them would be very much a challenge. Regional mandate could severely limit our ability to tailor educational resources, technology, equipment of what we believe works best for our students. This could not only lead to higher expenses, but could also restrict the quality and uniqueness of the programs we offer. We have spent many times, many board meetings, the Board of Education, the administration, the staff, looking to pick what works best for Cold Spring Harbor. Now we would, as part of the Western Suffolk BOCES district, have to work with 19 other districts to come up with answers to all those questions of what we would want to work together. Maintaining local choice and flexibility is essential to ensuring that our programs meet the high standards we expect here in Cold Spring Harbor and meet with our standards. We're not saying that other districts don't have high standards. They have different needs and different requirements. We want to have that local autonomy to control and pick the programs and resource allocation that work best for us here in Cold Spring Harbor.
Yeah, and dovetailing off of that, so the text of the rule itself states that the regionalization plan shall be submitted on a form prescribed by the commissioner. We don't have that form yet, so we don't know what they want to be included in this plan. And then going further, the rule states the regionalization plan shall be reviewed by the department within 30 days, and the department shall grant approval of regionalization plans based on criteria to be determined by the Commissioner of Education. So we don't know what the form plan is supposed to look like. We don't know what criteria they're supposed to consider. And so we're just in this state of no man's land right now, having no idea what and how this is supposed to look. Other than the fact that Cold Spring Harbor is going to be participating in some regionalization plan with 18 other school districts in Western Suffolk, as Joe just mentioned.
And
What's particularly concerning is that, when you attend meetings, they had a Zoom where they answered questions, and we're seeing some phone calls have been made to some other involved board members. And the conversation's always like, well, this is just going to be a conversation between the schools and it's optional. But then when you read the regulation, it's not reading that way. So if they're willing to change all of the wording to say it would just be, a 10-year plan for school districts to get together and have conversations and everything would be optional, I think most people would be open to that. We love to work with our schools, our peer schools on Long Island, with any school on Long Island who wants to have a conversation with us. I know Joe is always willing to pick up the phone. We're part of a coalition of schools here on Long Island. Our initial letter that we sent out made it way all the way across the state. I got a call from a board member in Rochester asking for more information. They're concerned about this. He's actually outside Rochester because Rochester is exempt, but they're part of the Big Five, but Greece is not. And so I think that the hesitation isn't working with other schools. It's the burden that's being put on schools that you'd be required to do what's being prescribed by the state. And then the, as Joe has said, vagaries and lack of transparency then and the information gathering we've tried to do on our end.
Yeah, and thank you, Alex. And I'm just going to read a segment from, it was Monday or Tuesday's Newsday. And let's read the paragraph. In other business, Roger Tillis, the Long Island representative on the Board of Regents, commented on the state plan to regionalize some aspects of public education. Tillis asked that changes be made in the regulatory language to emphasize that districts can opt out of plans they do not believe that they don't believe would benefit them. You can see that even the Regents is saying it is not clear on what we have to do in the requirements here. Oftentimes you see the word compelled. Districts will be compelled to follow, must follow, are words used. So by somebody simply saying, well, maybe you don't have to. We want to see what the regulation actually says. We need that change. And Regents Tillis expressed that this week up at the state. Okay, I'm going to move to our next question. Has anyone reviewed local building codes and safety systems to determine if our facilities can handle potential overcrowding from students outside the current district map due to the regionalization plan? So, I mean, I don't know if that is something that will happen, if students will be forced to come to our school. It could be something as simple as maybe they're required to participate in clubs and activities that other districts don't have. We don't know, again, because of the vagity. Do we have space in our district? Yes, the Board of Education Administration actively review enrollment projections and strategically plan to accommodate future needs. So we do that. We know how much we space have. Not that we have a lot of space, but would something be taken over for another district for students to come here? We don't know. We don't know. The state hasn't said that this is not on the table. We want answers to that. And I'm very happy for all the people who have been writing to the state and sharing their concerns, because these are real questions that are coming up that the state hasn't provided answers to. So there's a degree of uncertainty regarding the potential revitalization plan. As I said, the lack of detail makes it difficult to predict how specific elements will impact us as a school district. For instance, it is unclear that there could eventually be mandates for reassessing students across lines. It is possible. We don't know. They're not ruling it out because of their vagaries. Nick, Alex? Okay, I think we're good. Next one is similar line. How would class size and the typical daily schedule of Cold Spring Harbor students be impacted by regionalization? And will there be an increased enrollment from other districts? The Board of Education Administration, we here continually monitor and analyze class sizes to ensure that remaining optimal for student learning. That's what we want here. Our commitment to maintaining small class sizes reflects our dedication to providing personalized attention, fostering strong student-teacher relationships, and in creating a supportive environment for all of our students. We understand that manageable class sizes are essential for effective instruction, student engagement, and individual academic support. We plan for this, we work hard on this, but could there be rules and regulations coming from the state that prevent us from following what we've been doing for many, many years, providing the best possible class sizes for our students, our teachers, and our community?
Yeah, it's something that we worked so hard on as a board to bring the class sizes down, right? So, and certainly I know lower enrollment in schools is something that they may have an eye on. Our enrollment has dropped in our schools. So these are certainly issues that are concerning to us when we are confronted with this potential plan.
Next question, what specific academic courses, extracurricular activities, and sport programs at Cold Spring Harbor would be affected by this regionalization plan? Again, unfortunately, I'm going to go back and say it could be all of them. There's nothing specific coming from the state. I do have a couple items I clipped from. This is from the New York State Register, September 25th publication. And I'm going to read these right here. Regionalization in collaboration with BOCES and other school districts could lead to significant cost savings for local districts. So about money, by enabling and sharing of both educational and operational activities. I don't know what that means. that by the sharing of both educational and operational activities. Does that mean we have a robotics team and the district doesn't? They have to participate in our robotics team or an athletic event or something else. I don't know. Let me say this. There may be a day where we want to work with another district, or district asks us, can we share on a club or activity? And it works out for both of us. Let that be our decision. That happens. Other districts do that. We've worked with other districts. Let that be our decision, not be forced upon us. Let me see if I have another quote here. No, that's it on that quote. Nick, Alex, anything in particular?
Yeah, no, it's the same thing.
The same thing.
We don't have specific answers because the state has given no specifics on the regionalization. So we're just left kind of in the dark here, which is improper. Under the law, they need to disclose the criteria they're using, and how the plans are gonna look before they ultimately adopt the rule, which they have not done. So this isn't a proper rulemaking as they proceeded.
Our next question, what potential benefits could students and staff experience from the regionalization plan? As I said before, we learn from schools all the time. If a school district, Syosset, whoever, I don't want to name schools, has a great program, we go and visit and we learn from them. We don't have to always, I'm smart enough to know, speak to other people, see what they do, and we take back to what we have and what we need and work it in with our students. Like I said, we've visited other schools for their science research, with the AP capstone, our integrated co-teach plan, to see what they're doing and learn from them, learn from their mistakes. We've hosted here Canvas Day before the pandemic had it. We hosted flexible learning sessions where districts came to us and we went to them to see how they were operating. And again, let's learn from each other. But the key was we took back the information we learned and made it work for us personally. There wasn't one plan that everybody had to follow. And they took what they learned from us and from these meetings, and they integrated it into their classroom. We're a very collaborative group as it is right now, all the time. We really, really speak to many, many school districts. The beauty of technology, we could do a Zoom, we could just call in, we could text each other. It's great. We just don't want to have to be forced to come up with one plan for the other 19 school districts in our local region. And what may come down the road, is it one plan for all of Suffolk, then one plan for all of Nassau County? We don't think that is right. And as Nick has said many times, the process is, and I think this is a question that comes on later on, what was the emergency at the end of the summer to force us to do this? Had to be done right away. That's the big question. Why was it an emergency regulation? We don't know why. Okay, our next question we have. What does this plan mean for special ed services? Would it become similar to another school district that would need to be approved by the county for services? Going back again, Cold Spring Harbor deeply is committed to providing individualized special education services tailored to the unique needs of each of our students. Our dedicated team of professionals collaborates closely with families to ensure that every child receives the highest quality of support, emphasizing a personalized approach, working with each student's strengths, challenges, and goals. And we firmly believe that this individualized focus is essential to helping students thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Having or imposing a one-size-fits-all plan, I don't know how that would operate. Again, I know our staff reaches out if they have an interesting or a challenging special education question. They'll reach out to colleagues. They go to meetings. Actually, our special ed team is going out east for a huge conference this week, where they collaborate, where they network. So if they do have an interesting challenge or something come, they will share with them and say, how did you solve this in your district? How did you provide these type of services? Or we've never had this situation in the past. Can somebody help us? We encourage that. We want to do that. We continue to do that. But being forced to use one plan, one provider, one service doesn't work for us.
Yeah, and Joe, I mean, I think it's important for people to know that currently for special education services, if school districts don't offer services that support students, other school districts actually do take those students. So that is something that's already a shared resource among schools on Long Island. So there's no need for a plan to be put in place for that because it already exists.
Right, the state could have simply had said, we want to enhance how you're sharing your resources
Yeah.
to work together. How can we help facilitate that? I don't think we would be here right now. But that they could have done that, and they
I
chose
would be pleased to have that conversation.
exactly. They chose not to approach it that way.
Yeah, the other thing is they've just, not to beat a dead horse here, but they keep calling it a conversation, but they actually never had a conversation. They sent a survey just to superintendents. They didn't alert school boards at all. And it was just fill out the survey because we have this new emergency rule and we're moving forward with it. It wasn't tell us what you think. We'd like some input. It was here it is. So it didn't feel like a conversation from the beginning, which is it's too bad because if the intention is a good one to have a conversation, which is always important, I think in education everyone should be having conversations all the time. That would be welcome, but it wasn't approached that way at all.
And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I don't believe the term Board of Education is used anywhere in any of the publications as part of the conversation and decision makers. Am I correct on that? I believe I am.
But not as decision makers. No, it's that you would not be the decision makers, I believe, is the only implication. Yeah.
Is just
I
remarkable.
mean, and as elected officials, I think, Nick, we talked about this a bit the other day, is that, the commissioner of education is an appointee and we're elected officials. So that's complicated there too, that I don't know how that an appointee can supersede who the community is elected for their school board.
Right, that's the divesting of local control where you have,
Mhm.
the residents of the community electing school board members, and now you have a commissioner who is unilaterally in her own discretion approving and denying regionalization plans that are submitted based on criteria we don't know what exists, and forcing the school districts to comply with whatever she says. That does not sound like democracy to me. Sounds like quite the opposite. And so that's really the crux of the problem here, more than anything else.
Very good. Let me move to the next question. How will the regionalization plan impact overall administrative headcount and the role of central administration? So I'm going to take a line out of one of the publications. Again, that's the September 25th New York State Registrar. Shared operational activities such as transportation, facilities management, and administrative function would further reduce costs. So would I be shared with these districts? And yes, well, I guess I'm making a plan with 19 other school districts to make decisions. But they'll be taking what we have here to make decisions. We would be losing administrative. I'll be part of decision makings for districts that are miles and miles away, and I know nothing about. I think I'm very fortunate, someone being here in a district for 28 years. I know a lot about the district, about the staff, about the community, about the students, and I bring value to that. I don't know what value I would bring to making decisions on 19 districts. I'm going to guess 70 elementary school buildings, at least 19 other high schools and countless middle schools. That would take a lot of time away from my decision making here in Cold Spring Harbor, and making sure we have the right decisions for our students here. It would definitely diminish the unique characteristics and priorities and strengths that we have here as part of Cold Spring Harbor.
If I could answer that, Joe,
Please.
there was an additional rule that was proposed by the commissioner, the Department of Education. It's titled District Superintendents. And what that rule does is it effectively turns the BOCES that Joe was talking about and bestows powers on the BOCES to not only oversee regionalization, but also oversee other aspects of the component school districts, such as Cold Spring Harbor in the Western Suffolk BOCES. So the BOCES superintendent would get, enhanced powers to really oversee various aspects of all of the component school districts, including Cold Spring Harbor. And so the administrative headcount, as Joe mentioned before, could be shared through BOCES. It might not even be, for example, Joe doing the work on behalf of different school districts. BOCES may actually take that over under their sister rule that was recently proposed. Another thing that we're looking at very closely, and it is, certainly certainly to regionalization.
And I think what's very important, if you read any of the information published by the state, the term district superintendent does not mean me. The district superintendent is the BOCES person. So if you miss that quick definition in the beginning of, I think in September, it was a 90-page document, you would think they're talking about each district's individual superintendent. They're not. They're talking about the BOCES superintendent having all this authority over school districts. It's an important factor to understand. The next question here, what does staff being shared mean under the regionalization plan, and could it result in teachers being relocated through the BOCES region? Right now, that is silent on that, but that is a concern that we have. That if the plan thinks we have extra staff here, because according to whatever plan comes up, they have a different student teacher ratio is something that we require for our students. If they move, I don't know. Again, the vagaries of what the plan brings in, as Nick said earlier, we're supposed to submit this information on a form, filling out and answering questions, hasn't been developed, or if it has, it hasn't been shared with us. So we don't know what they plan to do with our staff. Okay, our next question here. Have you engaged with all of the boards or administrations of the other schools in our BOCES system? Are they for or against this? I don't want to say if I spoke to all the BOCES, the boards or administrators in BOCES. We've spoken to many people, as Alex said, from all over. I had spoken to people, school districts all the way up to the New York Canadian border, getting the message out. I thank our community for being so active in sending letters to the commissioner, to the governor, voicing their opinion on how they feel about regionalization. As of Monday, 29 school districts have had members of the Board of Education sign on to the coalition letter, and I know that is continuing to grow. So we know at least the 29 of roughly 130 school districts have at least some board members who are seeing what's going on, don't like it, and I imagine that is continuing to grow. I know there are plenty of superintendents and administrators, staff members who are very apprehensive. Probably the number one question I get is, can we share your letter with our own community, from community members? And I say, of course, it's on a website. Everything is free for you to do. Link it out there, share it as what you can. Together, I want to continue to work together. And actually, that's a great example of us working together, sharing our resources. They don't need to reinvent the wheel. If they like my letter, they can modify it. I didn't copyright anything, take it and go. Whatever works for you. We just want to work together so we could have our autonomy over a local school district. I know Alex has been extremely vocal. At some nights, I think her phone literally melts on the amount of texts that she receives. Or she'll say, Joe, I'm sorry to get back to you. That was like 50 texts ago that I received. It is quite remarkable about the amount of communication. But again, I think that just shows how much local communities are nervous about what this may bring to Long Island and to their home district. We're not doing this just for Cold Spring Harbor. We're really doing this for all New York State. We want everybody to retain their autonomy over decisions. Hey, if two districts want to work together, be our guests, but it needs to be on their own time and their own decision making.
Yeah, thanks. And Joe, I think what's so great about this coalition group and all the school boards is that I'm on a separate text just with school board presidents too. There's so many really active community members in all these districts surrounding us. There was a great Syosset board meeting the other night. People can go on, and in your spare time, you can listen to that. And I always say you can go back and listen to any of our board meetings too, just like a podcast while you're driving around or going for a walk with your dog. But it's a great way to stay informed and hear what's going on in other neighborhoods too.
Excellent. Our next question. What happens if New York State totally ignores the counter arguments made by Cold Spring Harbor and other districts? I'm going to leave this one up to Nick. I think this is more on the legal side.
Sure. Yeah, so during this rulemaking process, there's a public comment period. And I understand there's been thousands of public comments submitted to the Department of Education on this rule. So the Department of Education is supposed to consider all of those public comments. Of course, they could ignore the public comments and proceed with rule promulgation and make this rule effective as is. If they do that, there's only two avenues. One is to comply, and two is to sue, to annul the rule. And so effectively the answer is if the state totally ignores the counter arguments made by Cold Spring Harbor and many other districts as well, Cold Spring Harbor is taking the lead here. The options are those two. Either we sue to annul the rule or we comply. And so that's going to be, I guess, a board decision, which I'm sure Alex will spearhead.
Yes, Nick, thanks.
Okay, the next question here. 1 second. Do we actually have a chance of opting out of this program forever? We will continue to fight to make sure we don't have to do any of these requirements here. We want to continue to work collaboratively with our local district and districts across New York State, learn from them, have them learn from us, and make decisions that work best for us in Cold Spring Harbor, as they're going to make decisions that work best for them in their school district. There's talk of that. I read that quote earlier from Regents Tillis. Maybe that will happen. I think if we continue to voice our opinion how we feel about this and the requirements why it should happen, I think it will, because if that is the original intention, then just let it be. Just let it be. So if that's it, this could be very simple. Let's at the next meeting put in the regulation that districts could opt out without penalty to the district. We don't want to have, well, you could opt out, but you lose X, Y, Z. That won't be fair either. If that's what they want to do, let them do it. What is the emergency they're claiming is taking place? Great question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody knows what the emergency is. If anybody knows it, I would like to hear it. Again, if this was simply, as Alex said before, to work together and talk with each other, that could have been a two-sentence email to everybody and say, listen, we'll give up spaces for you to come to local BOCES. We at Cold Spring Harbor host many, many meetings. I often say, you guys want to come to Cold Spring Harbor? I'd love to show off our campus, to show the great things, to show off our great students and our staff and our community, all the great support we have. I would love to do that. I don't mind hosting at any time. The board has been very supportive of doing that. But if that's it, then do it. Send out 2 sentences and we're good to go.
So in the state register, they're actually required to disclose the finding of necessity for the emergency rule. And all they say is that the finding of necessity for emergency rule is the quote preservation of general welfare. End quote. That's the end of it.
Okay, the next question. Who decides if this regionalization plan passes? Is it a vote? By whom and when? Nick?
Yeah. So I think I alluded to this earlier. Effectively, the BOCES superintendent submits the regionalization plan to the Department of Education, and then the commissioner is going to review the plan based on criteria, whatever criteria I guess she wants to consider, and then she will approve it. There's no vote. That's it. So the BOCES superintendent has to submit the plan by October 1st, 2025. And then the commissioner has to either approve or reject the plan within 30 days. If it's rejected, it goes back to the BOCES superintendent to amend it to comply with whatever the commissioner requires. And then once that plan is effective, it's good to go. And then ultimately, I think actually this is another question for later, but I'll just jump to it if that's okay, Joe. The regionalization plan that is approved will have to be implemented starting the 2026-2027 school year, which sounds like it's far away, but it's really not. I mean, we're really a year and a half away from there.
Okay, we just have a couple more minutes here. Some other questions have come in. And many of them are repeats or very similar to things we have answered. I will say, as in the past, if we haven't answered or a new question comes up, you could always call or email me. I will gladly speak to you or get back to you about any question you have. We're going to post this on our website and send out the link to the community. As Alex said earlier on our website, we have a link to fill out a quick Google form to submit an email address for anybody who wants to be part of our communications. We encourage everyone to share that with anyone you know who wants to receive communications from the district, and we'll gladly add them. So let's get back to the last couple of questions here. Can you explain why we are a member of BOCES? We do a lot of great things with BOCES. We buy a lot of resources, BOCES. They help us out tremendously. They help on, like, when we buy, for instance, the Zoom call we're using right here. They go out, got a contract for buying Zoom. We got a much lower price than if we did it independently of BOCES to buy our Zoom accounts, because they do it basically for across the state. So we get a nice discount. And many times things that are used for education, we get aid back from the state on. So that's why many times we purchase things through BOCES. It helps us get better pricing, and it helps us get aid back from the state. So I don't want to think that BOCES is bad all the time. There are a lot of great resources. They help us out tremendously. My contacts there help me oftentimes put me in contact when I do have a question. They'll put me into the right direction to someone who I could speak to help us. Do you have any idea or proposals for altering the regionalization plan that would address concerns from the state that could help? Again, we're just looking to make sure that we can opt out, we can make decisions that work for us, Cold Spring Harbor, for each district to have the opportunity for them to make decisions that work for themselves. Let the local administrators, their boards of education, and the communities work together to work out what's best for them. That's all we're asking for. Let us work what's best for our elected officials and Board of Education and our administration. Any thoughts on why large chunks of New York State were not included in the plan? I don't know. Take a look at those districts and see how they're performing. I don't know. There was no, Nick or Alex, did you hear any reason why the big five were left out? It's like, it's a little over, like, it's about 50% of the students. So I don't know.
Right. There's no disclosed reason. The only conclusion you can draw from it is that this is really a compromise, and it's a really arbitrary rule that they're just trying to impose on some districts and not others.
There's one, are there any legal options? We're looking at all options that will work best for us as a district and a community. That's why if Nick here will continue to go down those paths to find what is appropriate for us to fight this and to make sure we leave autonomy and decision-making in the hands of the local school districts like ours with the Board of Education. Wondering if the regionalization plan is proposed or is in fact being put into action. We were all put in a position to be reactive, or are we still in a place of proactivity? Nick, I guess you could say there. I mean, the next meeting, I guess, is in January. Am I correct? When they're meeting?
Correct. Right. So the Board of Regents just extended the emergency, I think it was yesterday. And then they did that so that they could consider the regionalization as a final rule in January. If that passes in January, then it's on the books. And so then the dates get triggered where, you know, the submission deadline of October 2025 is in play, and then implementation 2026 to 2027 is in play as well. But the school district does have, you know, the requirement under the current emergency rule to submit that strength and needs tool, which discloses like facts and data to the state. For whatever reason, whatever the state's going to do with it, we don't know. But that is the only requirement of our school district right now until that January meeting occurs.
Okay, we have two more questions. We're going to end up with them. One quick, and Nick actually just answered, when is the state required to provide an update on this? We have the next meeting in January. I guess they could always put something out if they wanted to sooner. but the next meeting is in January. Has Do other Western Suffolk districts oppose this? Yes. We have the list. We have the letter from the coalition of boards on our website. Again, last updated this past Monday, where there are members of 29 different school boards who have signed on to that. I will continue to update that letter as more people sign. The same link will work when I update with the newest. And the last here, has this regionalization plan been tried in other states and what were the results? We don't know what this plan is. There's no plan. It's just like, there's no plan. So I can't say that. You hear of other districts, you hear of other locations where they have huge districts, New York City being one, where you have regions where entire states have a single textbook that they use, or they have a single one program that they're using. That might sound great, but it doesn't allow for the individual needs for each of the school districts. I may sound like a broken record, but that's the truth here. We want to continue to build a school district and provide the resources for our students. We're not saying we know everything. We want to communicate with other schools and work with other schools and learn from them, and they learn from us. But we want, at the end of the day, to have the decision to make on what works best for us and for fill in the blank school district, for them to make the decision that works best for them. That's what we're looking for. We want our own decision making from our Board of Education, from our great community, from our administrators, from our teachers, our students. We want to make our decisions for us. I think it's pretty simple and straightforward. Any last and closing statements from Alex or Nick?
No, the only thing I want to say is, if you're compelled to send a letter, please send a letter. We have the links available that make it really easy. You just click that link, it automatically writes a letter for you and sends it through your email. You just have to add your name. So please do that. If you have questions, you can always reach out. The email that's BOE@CSH, that one goes to all board members and to Joe. So